Thank you very much, Niklas. Let's see whether the slides are working. No. Caroline, may I ask you to help me? Okay. So I'm very happy to be here, to be part of the opening team of this final conference of our 4 projects. And I want to take you into exploring the role of social innovation in the energy system transformation. And if we could see the slides as well. Yeah, thank you very much. Great, thanks. And yeah, let me start right into it because we're already running a bit late. I would like to take you to the European policy level, basically looking at the engagement of the European Union with the concept of social innovation. There's a long history that basically the European Union or the European institutions have been looking at social innovation as an instrument and as a means that could help us to address certain societal challenges. This all was coming up with a landmark report by the Bureau of European Policy Advisors in about 2010. That was done at times of major global financial crisis. So this is really the context within which social innovation entered much more prominently the stage at the European policy level. And from there, it has been taken up, and there's 2 illustrative quotes by former Commission members in this vein of, yeah, let's look at social innovation to help us address certain societal challenges. And from there, it has been taken also only recently to the energy discussion, so to the energy sector. And here it has been taken up not only by the work of these 4 projects that have been funded after 2018, but also by the work of the joint research service of the Center of the European Commission, who have also been taken up this understanding of social innovation really being about playing into the needs of societal needs, contributing to low energy transitions, but also empowering more vulnerable or specific social groups. So if we go from there, and the underlying question that basically this policy discourse about social innovation asks is, how can social innovation as an instrument contribute to a very specific preconceived ideas of an energy system transformation, right? The European Union has certain policy goals that they wanted to be reached, for example, through looking or funding the research with these 4 projects to find out how to decarbonize the economy, how to also make energy, as we just saw in the slides of Manuela, more just, sustainable and affordable. So if we take this what is referred to as the more instrumental and practical view of social innovation, it is really logical that we have this kind of perspective because we are facing quite severe pressures, right? And Tom Mayer, the vice mayor, has already said it's energy poverty is one of them, but there's also much bigger challenges. The climate change that we have to be addressing, resource depletion, biodiversity loss. There's all these kind of challenges we need to do. And I would like to argue today, and the message is that if we take such a narrow view on social innovation as being a means to address certain societal or policy ends, then it is just reducing the potential that social innovation can have to help us address these challenges. Because what it does is it takes it up in a way that reproduces imbalances in society because it takes up the more techno-economic ideas of that coming from the technological innovation, saying, okay, it needs to be marketized, it needs to be privatized, individualized, and being implemented and upscaled in a certain way. And in doing so, it really undermines, as I would like to argue, the potential it has. And if we could move to the, that's the good slide. So what I would like to mobilize, therefore, today is the insights from the more critical views of social innovation research. And I'm building there on a lot of giants, as we say in science, and a lot of ideas of others as well, who say that we can also take social innovation as much more an emancipatory concept, so as something that helps us not only think about in terms of immediate impacts or of really addressing these problems heads on, but also about much more deeper institutional changes that need to be happening. Thinking about it in different intervention logics, thinking about learning, about co-creation, and in addition also to also take into account much more radical ideas about how and where society should be going and how we could be doing this. So really the counter-hegemonic ideas that maybe are really discomfortable for policy to hear about, but that need to be taken into account in order to be addressing these challenges that we are facing. And now this is kind of a white and black picture of instrumental and practical view and more critical view, and there's certainly also critique on the critique for being just stopping with critique and not moving forward. So where does that bring us? And that's where colleagues and we have been working on this more critical reconstructive perspective, which is a very scientific term, to basically say, let's see how we can combine the two to move forward. And in this respect, I would like to introduce today just 4 points and really illustrate them with concrete examples of this perspective, and then move on. Yeah. So the first point is really about social innovation foregrounding the social. So basically the idea that social innovation is not only about the social aspects, of course, about the changes in social practices, of social relations. It's really also about how this is being intertwined with technology. So it's not about the absence of technology, and we've heard that also before here. So this includes then the socio-material kind of intertwinement, includes the acceptance of technology really, where we can look at, for example, examples such as an educational program that was done by Dutch utility with a municipality that are educating students about how to build their own windmill. And also on how to learn about energy reduction and consumption on the way. And a similar project has been also initiated in Luxembourg by a teacher who also builds windmills with his students, and basically through that increases this acceptance for technology that, as our Slovenian partner just said, is really contested in parts. And then so it's not only about this acceptance of technology, it's also about, and that's then the opening up, it's also about the power of ideas, about taking ideas such as the prosumer, that takes the idea of the producer, being a household and a firm, and then this the producer being some multinational somewhere, and pulls this together to a very localized version of where renewable energy can be produced, and how this then changes how we organize the energy system. And the second example there is also the divestment movement. The divestment movement, what they're doing, their rationale is that there's a lot of institutional investors being investing into fossil fuel industries, and they say in doing so they actually supporting this industry further, but also all these industries, if we really commit to this Paris Agreement, and we did, right? If we would then really if these fossil fuel industry companies would really take out all that carbon, take out all the coal and all the gas, and we would burn it, that's their assets, then we would go way over the carbon emissions that we promised that we would be doing. So there's this bubble. They cannot really burn. They're sitting on these assets. So when you invest in this, this is going to be, explode at a certain point in time. And with this reasoning, they have been challenging the idea of, this investment in fossil fuel industry. The second point I would like to make is really one that I already made. It's that social innovation is both about incremental change as well as more structural changes. The ongoing, so the idea with the ongoing incremental change is that you could look at examples such as that are much more targeted at behavior change, right? There's, for example, the student switch-off campaign in the UK that is organized by the National Union of Students, where they are having student housing competing with one another to reduce their energy consumption. Other examples, and many of you might know, maybe you even use them, are apps such as Enerjoy, who are helping you to track and then also reduce your own energy consumption. So it's about, yes, about these ongoing incremental changes. We need that as well. And besides that, we also need more structural changes. And there, the divestment movement would be a point in case, because they're looking much more at these underlying financial flows that are being, and how this could be redirected, for example. Another example is really that, you know, we all like innovations, right? It's something new, it's cool, it's hip, it's something we can identify with, it makes us happy, it inspires us. But in energy system transformation, there's also this point of we have to let go of something. And this letting go that can cause what some have called a transition pain, right? And it's about letting go of the fossil fuel industry, for example, in a way that is decent and doesn't cause more energy poverty on the way. So there are social innovation initiatives that have been pointing to this already for a while, and that are kind of having been working towards letting go of onshore oil and gas production, for example, as the examples on the slide. The third point is really about the underlying intervention logic. So we have social innovations, as I said earlier, much more about the incremental, the linear interventions, so that you could think about a project being implemented and from there, you know, being successful and upscaled. And from there, this kind of takes, again, this techno-economic ideas of, you know, you go to of technological innovation that only is successful once it hits the markets. Only then it's an innovation. Before that, it's only an invention, right? And it takes it to the social innovation sphere. And there are nice examples for that. So we have, for example, the climate hackathons. Many of you might have heard, some of you might have participated already. And the idea is quite interesting. You bring people together to work on these societal challenges that might not have worked on that before. And it's an idea that also very nicely spreads across different contexts and is then adapted to these. And the very example that I give here is one about a climate hack that just happened. And interesting to see is that the market logic really goes into it, because the whole idea of it is to produce or to incubate highly scalable as well as profitable climate tech startups. And yes, we would like to have those if they bring us closer towards our goal of, you know, getting to negative carbon emissions. But next to these, we also need to take into account also other intervention logics, other than those that are being driven by the more kind of penetrating the market idea. And these are, for example, logics of co-creation, of experimentation, of self-governance. And you know, the City Lab in Antwerp that has already been talked about, and that we will have a virtual guide tour tomorrow as well, is an example. It's driven by the municipality of Antwerp, and it has been bringing together a number of actors from across the city that have not been working before on that topic together. And they have been thinking about how could we address this topic of energy poverty together and build alliances. And there is, that happened. 4 experiments there were, and now they're actually starting to institutionalize these new ways of addressing energy poverty together. Another example of really how co-creation can come up with these more radical ideas of the counter-hegemonic ideas is the Citizen Convention for the Climate in the French context, in the sense that it was installed after the Yellow Vest protests in France by the French government to have a group of citizens think about how they could cut carbon emissions as a government, as a state, while upholding social justice, because that, of course, was the big question. And whether or not parts or nothing of this agenda has been implemented, it still had brought up new and radical ideas. And the last point I would like to make is about the agency of social innovation. So when we look at social innovations, and we have seen it also with many of the projects that are funded, we are looking at those that are coming kind of from outside the system and come up and being very successful. Our innovation heroes, we like to call them, the energy cooperatives, the community energy initiatives, and they've done a magnificent job, and they still do so, as also the other projects will show during these days. But they have done so because they are embedded in a broader ecosystem, in a broader network of other actors as well that have been supporting them and that also have been maybe impeding them in doing so. But it is through this embedding that also makes it possible that we have those heroes. And then it's about these heroes, we need them. And on the other hand, it's also about how social innovation is coming from different actors as well. You know, point in case, the city of Antwerp, the French government that I just introduced. But also in the UK, there are local governments who are basically issuing bonds and that are then being administered by crowdfunding platforms to allow their population to pledge as least as £5 and to start with investments of £5 to green their own city while getting a return on investment in doing so. And yeah, taking these 4 points and going back to the question that we have been asking at the beginning, how can social innovation be an instrument? Now can we maybe rephrase this question and say much more, you know, how and under which conditions can social innovation contribute to be to much more transformative change rather than only towards getting our policy goals ready? We have come up with an answer to that question that's really technical, but basically the idea is that social innovations can be transformative to the extent that they challenge, alter and or replace the institutions in the dominant context. So it's challenging, altering, replacing the ways that the energy system is being organized, is being thought about and being done currently. And this being both on the more incremental level of maybe the practical organization, daily organization and of the design, but also much more these underlying institutional changes and challenges that are changing the norms and the values that we are looking at. And to sum up, I'm getting signs here. My last slide is just to get back to those 4 points, right? If we could, yeah. So it's really about not the absence of technology, but it's really foregrounding the social because it has been neglected at the detriment of technology for a while. It's both improvement as well as emancipation and transformation. And it's also about different kinds of intervention logics, including co-creation and experimentation. And then, of course, the final point to be made. So, and then to sum up, social innovation should be there to both challenge us and challenge our institutions, our thinking, our doing, our organizing, but it should also be, it's also always maintaining certain other aspects of it. And it's also about, it's not something that's inherently good, right? If you take a more instrumentalist view, it says, okay, it's this social innovation which, you know, contributes to that goal. But in doing so, there can be people falling off. So, for example, there has been this common critique on energy cooperatives that they are not open to everybody just because of expertise, of access, of money questions. So always taking also the critique and looking what is these tensions, what are the unintended consequences. It's a political concept in the end, and it shouldn't be depoliticized by putting it into a market strategy. And in taking very diverse directions into account. Because only then we will be able to address the challenges that we have to be facing. Thank you very much, and I give back the floor to Niklas.